Owning a car isn't cheap, but good news, it doesn't have to be expensive. So cars are generally lovely things. They don't tend to fall apart. They waft you along the motorway, whatever it happens to be, but they can be pretty expensive to run and pretty expensive to buy to begin with. So here are 5 things that you can do that work to reduce the cost of car ownership. Let's be a bit controversial here. That's right. I did say, do you really need a car? We're talking about car ownership here. Can't you use public transport? Can't you think, well, can you use a motorbike? Can you think about riding on an e-bike? Or could you even do, very controversially, walk? I know, these things are quite difficult. Legs, they do things, off you go. That's right. But they can get you to the same places that a car gets you to. Okay, if it's chucking it down with rain, a car does one thing that quite a lot of those things can't do, and that's keep you dry. So why not consider whether you actually need a car? Can those other means of transport get you around just as easily, get you to the places that you want to go, and in fact, save you more money? So why don't you just hire a car for the journeys that you need to do? But there's the odd journey that you do that you think, okay, I'm going to need a car to do that. Yeah, well, public transport might work or not, depending on if you've got a strike or not. There are plenty of sites out there that hire cars, daily, weekly, 2 daily, whatever it happens to be. So you could reduce the cost of car ownership by turning around and saying, well, actually, I'm only going to use a car. I'm going to hire a car for those days that I have to have a car. For those other days, I'm not going to bother. And it might be that those days that you hire a car, you suddenly go, well, I need that for business. Oh, hold on a minute. I can charge my employer for hiring a car, and that saves me money too, because I then don't have to have the cost of the car, and my employer's paying for it for me to drive wherever I've got to do. That's a win-win, isn't it? Suddenly you haven't got the cost of car ownership and you're not having to pay out for car hire. It's not going to be for everybody, but why not consider working in that way? But car sharing can work. You can use things like Turo as a website that will enable you to put your car on there and rent it out for a day that will then reduce those costs. You're getting some income while your car's sat on the driveway doing nothing. Those are websites out there that enable you to do that. You could just take a passenger on the journey you've got to do and enable you to reduce those costs that way. Do I buy a new car or do I buy a classic car? What do I mean by a classic car? Well, let's consider classic cars generally are old. I think they've got to be over 20 years old, something like that. But if they are over 20 years old, why is that an advantage? We don't pay road fund licence for a start because it's a classic. Bear in mind, it's an old car. That means it's probably going to break down more. That means the cost of ownership might be higher. But that might be higher. They may not be. But also the fact that it's tried and tested machinery. It's not something that's just come out latest by, I don't know, Mitsubishi, whoever it happens to be, that's got this newfangled bit thing on it that makes it go boing, boing, boing every 2 minutes down the road. Well, great, that boing, boing thing might break regularly and you're back at the dealership every 2 minutes. With a classic car, that's not likely to be the case, but bear in mind that those classic cars are going to need more repairs. But also, the final thing to think about with a classic car is the value tends to go up, not down, depending on what classic you buy. If you buy a 911, the chances are it's going to keep going up because that's what they seem to do. Other classic cars have other disadvantages though, but it's something to consider in this whole debate. You might have heard of this, petrol and diesel, fuel prices go through the roof. They're subject to the crude oil price, all of that complicated stuff that comes down, and we can't do anything about it. So what can you do about that bit? Well, you could consider electric. So if you're just driving around your local town, I would say electric's a really good option for you because you can charge at home. But more importantly, every time you're driving around your town, you're not polluting anything. It's got 0 emissions. But the other thing to consider with electric is if you're going further afield, you've got to consider how you charge. And that doesn't work for everybody. Some people quite like that. They can stop, enjoy the ambiance of a motorway service station. But that could be something that you enjoy and you want to take advantage of. It just breaks up the journey and makes it a bit different. But electric is arguably the future. We all know that from 2030, you're only going to buy an electric car. I think kind of watch that space for now, because that might change. Somebody's talking about hydrogen. Sounds like a bomb to me, but you never know. It might be in a car. Maybe it'll make the car go like a bomb. Who knows? Cars are beautiful things. They're lovely to drive. They waft you along. They keep you in a safe place. But there are other options. Don't be blinkered into thinking you've got to have a car. think about the wider issues and make sure you budget for those costs of ownership.